And this is like a freshman philosophy professor saying, the story that you're going to talk about is a wife, changed the ownership of their house to her name out from under her husband without his permission. Do you think that was ethical or not? And you go, oh, that sounds bad. And then he goes, what if I told you that this was the backstory? And you go, oh, still sounds bad. Then he goes, all right, what if I told you this was the only one where you go, yeah, she did the right thing.
The next thing that happens is a scam that's so absurd that when I read it, I didn't even understand how it worked. Here's a story of how they stole his house. So after Christmas, they text him saying, you should tell the dean how you've raped women, how you've sexually abused them, and then now you'll be held accountable. And Schumann, who had allegedly born his child, wrote in February, I'm going to write her and detail the abuse you've done and explain how if they have any decency, they'll fire you. The fighting was punctuated by occasional in-person meetings among the three, purportedly figure out a harmonious path forward. In April 2017, they agreed that Hader, that is the trans woman, Schumann, the woman who allegedly bore his child, and Hader's boyfriend Klein and the kids would stay with Hay, that is him, in July, while Zax, that is his wife, was away in Spain with his other children. The women were planning to sell their house and buy a bigger place in Cambridge. The reason they allegedly had money for this was because Schumann, said she came from a rich family. They planned to buy a bigger place in Cambridge, and then this is parenthetically, I swear to God, though at other times they discussed moving to Europe to flee Trump's America. Always got to ground the story in a bit of hardcore reality.
Hey, remind you that this happened in real life. And in some story that Ben Shapiro wrote.
Right. And so,
dismissed by critics as too fanciful.
Yeah. I just want to remind everybody again, in case you're losing track, Hay is Bruce Hay. He's our dupe in this story. We have Maria Pia Schumann, who is the allegedly French woman who allegedly had Bruce's child. And then there is I forget what Hader's first name was. It doesn't really matter. Hader, who is a trans woman who is best friends with, and is presumably the brains behind this whole operation.
Oh, God damn.
Okay. And then, so Hay only asked that they not, he asked them not to tell his wife that he would be staying with them. He went house hunting with Hader in May and June and helped them make arrangements.
When someone has tried to blackmail you several times, like maybe the worst thing you can ever say to them is, okay, I'll do this other thing for you, but don't tell my wife. You might as well hand them $100,000.
And then he says, and so he went house hunting with Hader in May and helped them make arrangements to have their stuff moved. At the beginning of July, just before their stay in the Hay household, he says Schumann and Hader invited him to Paris over Bastille Day weekend and gave him a check for $3,000, claiming it was for expensive. Schumann told him she had another surprise for him. Oh my God. Schumann told him she had another surprise for him, but she needed his computer password. He complied. He'd given Schumann the password to his devices and accounts before. At the last minute, Hader and Schumann opted for a long weekend in Quebec instead. Acting on what he says were Schumann's requests, Hay booked a moving truck, putting the $200 deposit on his university credit card, and rented a series of storage units. He says Schumann claimed it was necessary for insurance purposes that he signed the paperwork, even though the units were not for his belongings. He deferred to her authority. As an accountant, she was business-minded, he reasoned. He signed without reading them. Again, let me just read this again. Harvard law professor, judgment and decision-making, he signed without reading them. He desperately wanted to appease both families. Schumann and Hader on one side, Zax and their children on the other. Less than a day after the three arrived in Quebec.
Both families, my wife and children, and these two crazy people who have inserted themselves into. So you can see how I have those interests I have to balance. It's very delicate. The two scam artists.
Yeah, and so Schumann disappeared while they were in Quebec with his laptop, going to Montreal, but promised that she'd rejoin them soon. Hay's neighbors then tipped off his wife that something was like, I hope these moving trucks don't mean you're leaving us. Zax was freaked out, but Hay assured her the women were just using the as a staging area for transferring the women's things to storage. But when Hay and the women returned to Cambridge 2 days later, Hay and Zach's beautiful Italianate home on a quiet corner of Mount Vernon Street had been emptied of his family's furniture, cookware, toys, documents, books, Zach's mother's and grandmother's heirlooms, and everything replaced with the women's furniture. When Schumann had gone MIA in Quebec...
The wife's grandmother's heirlooms?
Yes.
Jesus
and I just
Christ.
love this sentence. This sentence that's about to come next kind of reminds me of that sentence about John Bolton, about how he moved or maybe moved himself to Mongolia. When Schumann had gone MIA in Quebec, Hay believes she wasn't seeing a doctor. She had been overseeing the complicated move, all 10,000 of which had been charged to Hay's credit card. The next day, Hay called the Cambridge police. When the officer accompanied him to his house, the women came to the door, his door, and furnished a lease, renting them the $3.2 million home for 2 years for $1,500 a month. He says Schumann had used his laptop while they were in Quebec to send an email to her lawyer from his Harvard account in which he purportedly said, quote, "The lease looks good." They then produced a copy of the $3,000 check they made out to Hay before the Quebec trip. "See, we paid a deposit," they said.
I need to interject. As someone who lives in the great state, the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that in Cambridge you could rent more than one bedroom for
really an
$1,500
outhouse
a month is not plausible. If someone told me they had a 2-bedroom house to themselves for a 1-bedroom apartment to themselves in Cambridge for $1,500 a month, I wouldn't believe them. I would think they were lying about their rent out of shame or because their parents pay for it or something.
Or maybe they just live on the outskirts of Cambridge, like they're only
they didn't live in Cambridge at all, and Somerville or someplace, or Alston or Brighton, or a further place out like that. And even then, I would say for $1,500 a month, they're living in a house with 6 or 7 other people. That is insane. It's the equivalent. If you live in a normal part of the country, it would be like someone saying they lived in an entire house on their own property and they paid $1 a month in rent. It is on that level. It's like, no,
it's unbelievable.
You're making that up. It's not possible.
Schumann also told the officer that she'd thrown Hay out of the house the night before for unwanted sexual advances. The officer saw no reason to believe Hay's story over hers. Hay tried to appeal to the women to leave and de-escalate the situation before Zach's returned. On July 24th, Hader texted Hay to say, "All this is difficult, but we love you."
Wait, what?
Yes.
Who said that to who?
Hader said it to Hay. That is, the trans woman said it to the man she was scamming. "This is hard for you, but we love you."
Oh my God.
Okay. They also rented a car and hit him with it. I'm just going to really skim through this. Okay. Yes, they rented a car and hit him with it. Let's see.
I only read the summary of this article.
Yeah. Schumann claimed to be pregnant again. They had another sexual encounter. They had sex again, during which she wore a condom and did not ejaculate. And the next time they spoke, Schumann told him that she thought she might be pregnant again. I mean, Bruce Hay must believe he's a goddamn stallion. This man's got nuclear-powered sperm cells to be pulling this off.
The last time a woman produced a baby without any sperm.
I mean, this man is like, this really shows that liberals do think they're God. If he thinks that he impregnated a woman under these circumstances. I mean, we gotta capture this man for study and other things. So
the last child to be produced without any sperm involved.
A religion was made out of this.
Yes.
You can make a religion out of this. Oh, yeah, so they hit him with a car. They tried to paternity scam him again. The article goes on like a long digress talk about how they did something.
Dead.
Right. They tried to do a similar scam on another person because when Hay went to get a lawyer, he now decided to get a lawyer. The lawyer said, "Wait, like, show me these 2 people." And then the lawyer saw the people, was like, "Oh, I have another client that they did basically the same thing to. He didn't do any of the wild shit your husband did, but you know." And so let's see. Okay, so then last June, Hay reached out to law enforcement, who told him it would be difficult to prove the woman had committed a crime. Then he contacted the person writing this article, and then he told, I guess, the woman this story. They filed the Title IX complaint against him, and he hasn't taught in multiple years.
Thank God he's not teaching judgment classes. He should have lost his job for that.
I'm glad this man is out of classrooms. Now, so both sides
That's like
have
the
filed
one silver lining of this story.
Yes. Both sides have filed suit against each other. And I was going to read this one paragraph. This is the closing paragraph, and it really punches. It says, Hay remains mystified about what the women really wanted from him. Money appears to be a factor, but not necessarily the only one. After all, theirs was a long, expensive, and punitive game with no guarantee of a big payoff. Hay says Schumann once told him they targeted him for signing an open letter in late 2014 calling for more due process in Harvard's Title IX proceedings. Schumann denies ever saying this. I don't know if that's the reason or something she made up later, says Hay. In May 2018, Hay received a barrage of text messages from an unknown number. Find a way to connect if you want a chance to take the last exit before hell. Take my word, you ain't seen nothing yet, I promise. Oh, and as to your quest for motives, don't bother. I just really hate the patriarchy. That's it. Okay. Now, I don't know how long we spent discussing this. It feels like, it feels like more than a half hour. There's just so much about this article that I really want to break down, and I really can't. But I just want to point something out. So the headline to this article is Bruce Hay the most gullible man in Cambridge? I don't think that Bruce Hay is gullible.
No.
I think that Bruce Hay is, I'm going to use the word again, is a beta male that's too smart for his own good.
Yeah.
At the end of this, I mean, what happened here is what we in the business call a red pill moment. Yeah, I'm using two of these terms now. Okay. But I was really struck by this one paragraph here that says, as he recounted the convoluted events of the past 4 years, his tone would shift from indignant to wistful, bewildered to humiliated, and then grief-stricken. He didn't seem to know whether to feel redeemed by the fact that he wasn't the only person duped or overwhelmed by the extent of the deception. Yet there were moments where he still sought to justify, or at least make sense of, Schumann and Hader's campaign against him, searching in earnest for evidence of genuine affection amid the years of deceit. I have strong feelings about this paragraph. At the risk of, blowing my spot, breaking kayfabe, so to speak, while nothing like this has ever happened, I mean, this scenario, I've never lived out this scenario.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I sure haven't.
This doesn't happen to everybody? This happened to me like 6 times.
That said, I have experienced a situation that is superficially similar to this. At the end of it, when you're retelling the story later, the superficial similarity is that it involved being fooled about something for a very long time in a way where you should have known it was happening and you just didn't act on it despite all warning signs, right? And when you tell the story later, you really do go through like a full emotional roller coaster, because suddenly, as you just describe it all in real life, now with the knowledge that it was never going to end well, I mean, it's just something else, right? Things that you wonder how you could ever have tolerated it, and you're just in awe at your own stupidity. How could this have happened to you?
Why? How did this happen?
We're smarter than this. I mean,
apparently not.
I mean, and you just find it funny. I mean, it's really like a trauma event. I mean, not to.
I think I've laughed more in this episode than ever.
Right. Not to bridge the dots too much. But if you know anybody, for example, and I'm not saying this happened to me, but if you know anybody who's maybe been sexually molested or something as an adult, and they tell the story, and it's not like on TV where when they tell it and the Lifetime music plays and it's all somber and they cry at the end. Sometimes they tell the story and they're just like, man, I don't know how stupid I was to think my uncle really had an alien in the attic. I mean, and I'm joking, like I'm saying that as a fake scenario, but like they will tell the joke to you in that way, right? They'll say it like they'll sort of say like, I must have been dumb as shit to do this. Like, do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yes.
Yes. And so I fully understand what exactly it was like for Bruce Hay to tell the story, even as I'm mocking him for being a dumbass, because he was. At the same time, he wasn't. But here's the thing about Bruce Hay that I picked up from this story.